This series of Married at First Sight should be renamed Divorce at Second Sight. Cut out the middleman and just get a fleet of cabs waiting outside the weddings to take each couple straight off to the divorce courts. It's the most emotionally chaotic Married at First Sight that I've ever seen, with some epically random couplings. And what this means is we've got those experts running around almost like an emergency service playing whack-a-mole with their advice, trying to get back in that room, and get on with your relationship. They're trying to heal what probably was not working in the first place. So when it comes to saying who's going to split first, who might cheat, I would almost say any of them. And I would include some of the, at the moment, happy couples. I see storm clouds. I will focus, though, on the couple that I would assume are going to split first, and that for me would be Charlie and Eve. This is a non-relationship. We've seen Eve preferring to sit on the stairs in the hotel in tears rather than spending time in the room with Charlie. Their emotional DNAs, the things that make them tick emotionally, just means that they're incapable of speaking to each other at the moment, certainly at the moment, without beginning to destroy each other and triggering all sorts of other emotions. And Eve in particular is going into a constant tearful meltdown about feeling that she's upsetting Charlie. But also you can always sense for her that claustrophobia when they're not literally locked up, but stuck together in that quite enclosed space for the next bout of rowing that she clearly can't stand. It almost doesn't matter whose fault anything is with these two. They even started on their honeymoon, and what that means is they've never had any time to establish any authentic ties. And when a couple have, then sometimes those rails might be something to communicate through and work through. But when you haven't got that basic relationship there, I don't really know why they would want to carry on doing that when it's clearly distressing them both so much. We see them making up, and we do get body language that looks as though they genuinely care for each other, but that tends to be just in their sort of happier state. And then those constant tears, it's almost like they need to be advised to quit, even if they don't make that decision by themselves. Although I do suspect from some body language that we're seeing at the moment that at least one of that couple with their non-verbal tells has already sussed the fact that this is not going to work ever. And that's why I'd probably put them up there as the first pick of the ones that are going to split. Eve keeps using a praying hand gesture all the time. And it suggests that she's getting emotionally exhausted. And as I say, it doesn't matter whose fault anything is, that's the state that she's getting to. We see Charlie, who falls in love easily. She said she'll grab her hand and try to create some form of contact. But then we see Eve readjusting that linking technique and changing it to just literally putting her fingertips on her hand, on Charlie's hand, to do little light stroking movements. And that's almost the next step, is just to take your hand away altogether. She doesn't want to be held. She doesn't want to be held down at all. That stroking then shows for me a sign of detachment, as though she just needs her space. It's just too overwhelming for her. When she told Charlie at the dinner party, the second dinner party, that I do have hope we can get back on track, and Charlie was obviously delighted. But when we look at Eve's hand gestures, when she said that, she performed a contradictory message that was as odd with her words. She performed a steepling gesture, and it was about there, quite close to her face. Now, a steepling gesture is a gesture to try and promote personal power, to regain a sense of control, whether that's life control or control in the relationship. I think this is control in her own life. And instead of leaning forward and touching to sort of prove her point, that created even more distance between the two of them. Um, the signal of status and strengths became a barrier. For me, it was a huge hint that she needs to get back to her life where she feels in control of her emotions and feelings once again. Michelle, for me, is another one to watch. I find her fascinating. Um, Her signals are all about non-attachment. She bolted at the start. We never really found out where she went. And then suddenly she came back and she seemed okay. But she's a very intelligent, successful woman. She's very smart and quite astute, and she seems to have a life outside the show. I know they all do, but she seems to be kind of sustaining that life outside the show and then popping back to play the game, despite the fact that she said that she's a complete and absolute rule breaker. She's astute enough to also doubt Orson when he said, "Oh, I'm getting the feels for her," after about an hour of meeting. I'm exaggerating. Um, and I think that cynicism has probably made her distrust. And she looks like a woman that feels as though she is in a game now and that she might play along with the game, but she's not really emotionally invested in that game. So, in terms of potential cheating, though, I love the way that we've had one couple who've been pointed out by the producers so emphatically as, "Oh, look, these two might cheat," that they might as well have stuck arrows on the heads, these two, to point them out in case we missed it in some of their scenes. That would be fussy Barber Adam. I mean, he clearly struggles, and he's verbalized his struggles, fancying Polly, saying his type is a pretty brunette. Door opens, in comes a pretty brunette Lacey, who was also emotionally very triggered by the fact that when she turned up at the hour, her husband to be turned round. He'd already said well to her sister, her twin sister, who she's already got kind of hang-ups for years about because people say she's prettier. So that for her would have been quite crushing, and she would be very much in need of an ego reboot, a bit of flattery. And of course, what does Abden do when they have the dinner party? She walks in the first dinner party and he immediately is shown going, wow. So there he is fulfilling her needs and he's fulfilling whatever. It looks like it's supposed to be a match made in heaven. However, Adam seems to be keen to stay in the show, though. I think of all of them, he's the one that is probably into his profile. I don't know if he thinks he'll be selling more of those haircuts or whatever. And if he cheats, he will know that it will probably ruin his chances of staying. They sometimes let them stay in the show, but at the moment, I can't see that happening.